Welcome to the FFL Solidity team call. My name is Marisa Maggio. Today is August 29th of, I lied today, I completely lied. Today is June 29th of 23. We're going into July week 1 of 4. Another way to look at this, guys, it's the middle of the year. So each and every week we truly sit back and think, who could we hear from that's really going to benefit the team? And especially this week, going into now the second half of the year, we wanted to make sure it was somebody special that could absolutely add a ton of value in different areas. So without further ado, Mike DeCecco, how are you doing today?
It's I gotta follow that intro. I'm pretty good. How you guys doing?
Doing awesome. Thank you so much for being on with us today. We don't take it lightly, and we know your time is precious. But just to kind of introduce yourself, Mike, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about your background, what kind of got you involved with Family First Life, and why you chose Family First Life.
All right. First and foremost, thank you very much. Super grateful for having me on here. So, Michael DeCecco. I'm from Uncasville, Connecticut. I live about a mile from where HQ is actually for Family First. Most of my working life was restaurant industry. My grandmother had restaurants. I was always wanting to be my own boss. So if any of the old schoolers on here ever remember like prepaid legal or anything like that, so I was trying to get down with something like that. But I was head server, head bartender at Michael Jordan's Steakhouse for 15 years at Mohegan Sun. Picked up a lot of bad habits, but it was good. It was fun. That too allowed me, we only worked nights and it was only like 4 nights a week. So I always had time to do something. When I got into insurance, so I'm very candid about what I'm about to share. I live in the world of recovery, right? So clean and sober boy here for a long, long time. But as my path kind of opened up, I got the opportunity to work at a farmer's. So I got my P&C license, not having a clue what either world was, P&C, life, health, any of that stuff. And went through, got my license, and it took me a little bit, but I started rolling. Awesome agency, awesome people, and it was actually across the street from headquarters. Like if you go to the Uncasville headquarters, right next to Cumberland Farms is Farmers. So it was kind of weird because I've actually known Mike since he started this. His son, my son, grew up playing baseball together, grew up together. Sean coached my kid. And I remember the winter where he was like, hey, man, you want to sell some life insurance? And I wasn't ready yet, but it was actually when he started FFL. So I kind of kicked myself for that, but can't look back. So with P&C, it's a different world than our world. Not that it's bad. P&C it's nice and all, but I'd put up like 50, 60 policies a month and my paycheck was like $3,000. And I'm like, this is like, this can't be right now. So I picked Sean's brain for a little while, got up with Matt Walker, and the rest is kind of history from there. I started at FFL kind of part-time in June. I just hit 3 years. So essentially I was like on and off part-time. I was getting out of Farmers. I had a pretty big book of business for 2 years of working there. But I didn't understand that I couldn't it was just crazy. Like I just didn't understand it. And when I basically went out one day, I think I booked like 10 appointments. I just listened to Walker. It was just like, here's a stack of old leads, dial, book, and then call me when you get to the house, right? So I sold like 3 policies my first day, and I like doubled what I had made at a month at Farmers. And I'm at the office 8 a.m. to like 6 p.m. I'm trying to coach basketball, and I was like, what have I been doing my entire life? But I was actually good. It was actually good to get that experience and see that side of things. So now I actually help P&C agencies. This is a nugget right here. So the world of P&C is all about retention, right? statistically, if an agency, if we had a P&C agency together here and we had everybody with their home and autos, we would want to cap that with a life policy. And I don't know the psychologically behind it, but the numbers just show that people are more apt to not shop their coverage if all of their policies are under one roof. So I have agencies now where they let me rip through their book of business because most of those guys only have a couple, like, you know, if you're Farmers, State Farm, Nationwide, most of it's fully underwritten. It takes forever. They don't have a market for like Miss Loretta, who's like 72 and she had a heart attack 2 years ago. Like, they don't have it. So you can go cap that, and they don't care. They don't want a commission. They don't want anything because we are helping their overall retention. So nugget right there. If you have anybody with a brokerage or an agency, tie into that because they're free leads, and you could charge $1,000 a piece for these leads. I swear to God. I mean, not really, but so when I got with FFL, I just listened. I listened. You guys were already rumbling. I actually ended up in your office.
Yeah.
Did you have an office with Jen Chamberlain, right?
Oh yeah, up in Uncasville. It's funny
Yeah.
because when you were explaining, like where Farmers is, I'm like across from Cumberland Farms. Like I know exactly where it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
your
So
that was your office for a bit too.
yeah, yeah. And
Love it.
the big thing there was my office was next to Eric Schmidt,
Mhm.
and that dude was an absolute terminator, like at the time when he was out in the field. So I just listened and listened and listened. And for the first 2 or 3 weeks, I just ran around the office making everybody give me that pushed aside stack of leads that they didn't want to touch. I just grabbed them and ripped through them and got hung up on 7,000 times and, got threatened to come kill me and all that good stuff that we hear. That's how we know we're doing our job properly, by the way. And then
I love that, by the way, right there. So let it rip on that. Go for it.
what's that? Getting
Like, it's part of the business, right? Not everyone's going to be nice, and that's okay, right? Like, if you're getting ripped on, it's probably a good thing because your activity's high, right?
yes, yeah. So and the crazy thing about that is revisit that lead 3 weeks later, and they made up with their boyfriend or girlfriend. They just had a good dinner, and now they're all happy and they want to talk life insurance. We have a saying, absolutely no rhyme or reason. You guys know this. There is no rhyme or reason to any of this. It's just stay active. That's all it is stay active. Because
Absolutely. And it sounds like, Mike, when you came in, like you didn't have that issue, right? Like you're like, hey, I had a stack of old leads. You weren't like, how old are these leads? Like, what are they going to say? You just were like, okay, I know my job is to call them. So you picked the phone up, you called them, you booked some of them. Some of them probably told you to fly a kite, but you were okay with that. You moved on. And you were like, basically, like you said, you were like, who got an old stack that they're not dialing on? And
yeah,
that's the difference between the willingness to be active and the willingness to not be active, right? Like, I know if I don't rip through 100 leads, at least minimum on a dial day, like I did not do my job, I did not slightly do my job.
yeah,
So I think that that's huge. And also just talking about from the beginning, Mike, you're like, I just didn't understand what I didn't understand. And I think that that's really important, right? Like some of us come from different insurance backgrounds, whether it's health, PNC, life insurance, or just like a completely different background. And we just simply don't know what we don't know. So I love how you use those examples of just kind of what that looked like in that world versus here. And also just that you got to basically experience that on such a quick level. Like you weren't like asking a million questions. You were like, how do I just get to work? And I think that that's key. So with that being said, what you're now predominantly all telesales. Is that correct?
all telesales.
All telesales. So what are the biggest things that, agents should consider when they're thinking about doing telesales?
The absolute must, the one thing is, unless you have all the talent in the world, you have to run in the field first. You just have to. You have to. This again, everything is coming from my point of view here, but I've also seen somebody try. Put it this way. This is what I try explaining to people. Selling life insurance over the phone. You are walking into a job fair saying, "Please give me the hardest job possible," and then you're going and putting yourself in it. That's what it is, because you have to know your underwriting. You have to be super sharp. You just have to be on point. I'm looking at Heather over here. She's getting a call from me when we're done here. Contact info will be shared for sure, because 24 families, like, I know what has to go into that, how many appointments she has to have booked, unless she's one call closing every single person she gets on the phone with. But you have to be ready for it. What do they tell us? Like, your first 100 appointments in the field, you should basically have it figured out, right? So we try to really shorten that learning curve. We were 50. We had a really good core of producers. So when new people came in, we would just try to get them through that 50 appointments. So I won't let someone do telesales with us or help them with leads or anything until I know they've run 50 appointments in the field.
I like that. And that's, like you said, just your stance of kind of the telesale model and what you should be prepared for as an agent. It kind of sounds like you're saying, like you said, in that first 50 to 100 appointments, we learn our audience, we learn who we're talking to. We learn essentially what the process looks like, underwriting and things like that. So it helps us be a heck of a lot sharper.
Yeah, you're giving up your upline. Essentially, you're giving up that call. So
Right.
you can be on Zoom with people, and I can hear my buddies, they can hear me. It's not the same. It's not the same as me calling Matt Walker from the home. It's just not. It's not. So, you know, it's I base
Absolutely.
everything. Yeah, everything is tone and delivery with me. You can hear the way I talk here. It's how I talk on the phone. It's how I talk to my kid, who just doesn't look ready for All Stars yet, so he's about to get caught up real quick. But tone and delivery is everything on the phone. So if you don't have the tone and delivery on the phone, you may be better off in home and in person. And we've had cases like that too, where tough sledding on the phone. They go, run 8 appointments in the field and sell 3 policies. So it's just a matter of
And then it
preference.
also helps turn it around. And I'm sure there's cases where people go in the field, they come back out, things
Yeah,
like that. Just like you said, working that learning curve, which I love.
yeah,
Now you went from being in home to all telesales, right?
yeah,
So with that being said, what was, your biggest struggle when you first got started with telesales, and kind of how did you get through that?
yeah. So it was lead control. So I think I said this at conference. I drove 2.5 hours to Cape Cod, got no showed. I put 7,000 missed me stickers on their house, gutters, mailboxes, everywhere, plastered. And that was it. And on my way home, I got a referral call, pulled over, and took my tablet out. And I think we've all done this. Even when you're in the field, you've sold a policy over the phone. Selling a policy over the phone here and there is not telesales, right? So I went home the next day. Actually, it was that night. I started researching live transfers. I was like, well, what is the quickest way I can get on the phone with people? It was live transfers. So I used All Web, and All Web gives you a $200 credit. So however that works out with lead cost, I got 3 free transfers. I sold one, and then I took like 9 transfers in that day, and I did just under 10 grand for the day from my recliner. And at that point, I was never leaving my house ever again to
Got it.
sell. So
So when you say lead control, do you mean
yeah,
essentially almost like spending too much in the beginning or not really knowing, or almost spending
no.
too little?
So with transfers, it's out of our control. right? Like
Right.
I don't know when the transfer's coming in. I could have 3 transfer companies all on at the same time, and I'm waiting for my phone, and then I pick up one, and then I forgot to turn that one off, and then I got charged for this one, and it's just like, well, so we thankfully, my 2 best friends and buddies of mine and agents and producers, they know the Facebook game. I don't know the Facebook game, so I get insanely good Facebook leads for super super cheap, and most people would think the opposite. My retention has skyrocketed, my lead cost has plummeted.
And
So
I just want to cut you off quick there,
yeah,
Mike, because you mentioned that at conference, right? You
yeah,
said like a lot of times folks talk about, fall off rate. And I think that's really important because I think if you have the right delivery, whether you're in person, you're on the phone, you're on Zoom, whatever it is, that your retention will be there. So talk to us a little bit about that because it seemed like almost like not like it irked you, but it's something that you feel like needs to be known.
what is the main reason why we lose business?
We don't answer our clients' phone calls.
That's one of them for sure, for sure. But we put them into a policy that can get undercut.
Hmm.
And if you leave them in a carrier that no matter what, they can field 1,000 calls. No one's gonna, smash that price by $25 a month or whatever. It's gonna stick if it was a good call and it was good business. I'm an attention to detail person. I think that's something I picked up from the restaurant industry, my grandmother. I I do a lot of things with like Canva, quotes, call summary. I can show you guys some after. I can send some to Marissa, but I'm a very big attention to detail thing, and I try to make it seem like it's the last stop shop for them. Like you have to obviously bring the need out, right? Paint those very, very vivid pictures on the phone. Make it seem like they might die in 25 minutes. Get them to understand what it actually looks like, what it costs, what can happen to the house, what can happen to the kids, and then put them in the proper product. You reverse engineer everything. If I was a 67-year-old guy shopping for final expense insurance right now, my first thought is to go to Google. And then I get knocked around with Globe Life and AARP and the good old 995 and all that stuff. Well, in the beginning of the call, if you're getting rid of all of that stuff in the beginning of the call, basically letting these people know, I get it. It's a daunting task looking for these types of coverages. Your phone is getting lit up. You're talking to incompetent, pushy people. I get it. You're putting them at ease. I think, putting them at ease, and if your tone and delivery through that whole process is building their confidence and trust, you're set up to keep that business. And as long as you put them in the proper product, which insurance toolkits changed the game for telesales. Like I will crank wheel. Remember crank wheel. Write down crank wheel, everybody. Crank wheel. You can crank wheel. I do it without even asking. I just say, hey, click on that link that I just texted you, and it shows the carriers and the prices. And it's like, here you go. You're seeing what I'm seeing. You're seeing the back end. This is the process. This is how it goes. And whether it's the Costco of life insurance, like whatever you want to say, but they're involved. You're like putting your head together with them. You're figuring it out. And, I will literally say out loud, nobody's ever going to call you with a policy that's magically $50 a month cheaper. It's just not going to happen.
Right. I love that. And I think that all that stuff you just said is really important because if we don't think about it that way, like 10 to 1 says, if your mindset says all this business falls off, then when you do telesales, you're probably not going to pay attention to detail and you're probably going to be in a situation where it does fall off because you're just going with the first quote. Now, I love how you mentioned you share it with them. That way they're, I call it like the Expedia of life insurance, the Costco of life insurance, right? That way they're able to see exactly what you're seeing. I think that that's great. So like Mike just said, crank wheel guys, let's all look into that. I'm definitely going to be doing that as well. And now, what schedule have you implemented in terms of telesales to make sure you're hitting your daily or weekly goals? What does that look like for you?
Yep. So I'm a single father. I coach. During the period of my self-sabotage, I was not the father I should have been. So I probably the hardest part too in the telesales was getting an actual disciplined, blocked out schedule. That, like, things will start to really shift when you can tweak and finally stick to a schedule. But you know, I drop my kids off. Well, one's 19, but I drop my youngest son off to school, and then I'm here. So I'm here from 8 until he's off the bus. I have somebody dialing my leads as they're coming in. They check them all the time. They dial a full 3 days a week, $300 a day, $300 for the week, $100, just cash out. Thank you very much. Under the table to, like, one of my mom's best friends was Life and Health Forever, and she just hated it, but she liked, I don't know who ever said this, but she liked dialing the phone. So, things are changing now with LLC and employees and all that stuff. But for right now, she's constantly dialing. And unless I have baseball practice at night, fill it, fill it, fill it, fill it. And with me and the phones, I do a 24-hour window. Do not book 48 hours out. Book 24 hours out. Same day or 24 hours. Same day or 24 hours. I used to try to do that in the field, honestly, too. But when we're driving, it's hard to have, unless you have a dialer setting for you while you're driving around. It's hard to do that. So here's another thing about telesales, right? I'm licensed on the West Coast. So I have an appointment tonight at 11 p.m., right? It's not 11 p.m. their time, so you can just maximize. I think I have 36 states or something like that. You can just maximize your appointments by using time zones. Just make sure your dialer knows not to dial a Washington lead at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
So, but yeah, so
that's huge in terms of being able to use other time zones. I think it's important too,
huge.
because it's like, you just gained an additional 3 hours because you're dialing the West Coast, right? So
Correct.
it's like you added 3 hours to your workday. You started at 8. It's really like you started at 5. And like that's a beautiful thing, right?
I love it.
So your schedule, you're really kind of just, you're bringing your son to school, you're dropping him off, you're coming back, you're doing your appointment. So everything's set for an appointment. You're not really one call closing, or kind of both.
It's tough. With the dialer, we've really worked hard to weed out health. I try to take guaranteed issue policies and give them to my 19-year-old who's licensed. So he's learning, he's having conversations with these people, and he's written a couple regular policies. So that means my dialer messed up, but he sits in with me anyways. But we sift out as much as possible. We try to have husband and wife. I do mostly final expense over the phone. So I did run a ton of mortgage protection. The reason why I switched to final expense is because trying to lock down husband and wife in the field is hard, let alone the phone. Getting an answer. But I forgot what you asked. That's where I'm
No,
at.
you're good. You're good.
Um,
Essentially just going back to your schedule and utilizing that West Coast time zone. So you're really able to do that. And with the dialer, you're able to kind of maximize your time as well, which is great. And When you're going in, you talked a little bit about this, when you're going into your actual phone call, how are you setting the stage to know that, so that your client knows that they're going to, be doing business with you today?
So when we book, they get a text, and I'm super straightforward in that text. It also has my website, which basically takes them to a page full of testimonials.
Okay.
And people believe people. Vets believe vets. That page is actually geared towards vets. And testimonials are clutch when you're working telesales, because then they read, we break some stuff down for them. It's like, one of the major things I try to say is if you write life insurance by yourself, like, you're not licensed to write life insurance. So you're putting yourself into a 2-year wait, right? Like, if I grab that flyer off the counter, I just bought myself a 2-year wait or an increasing term policy. So you need to speak with somebody authorized and licensed to give you day one coverage, right? And I harp on immediate coverage. And because nobody really understands that, right? Like, when we're drivers, we don't get pooled with bad drivers, right? If we have a good driving record, we get really good rates. If we're a bad driver, we get cracked over the head. A lot of these people are healthy and they're putting themselves in the pool with the unhealthy, right? So that's the text goes out, confirms the appointment, says the number, says the name. They see a page with me before they book anyways. And then they can go to the site for credibility purposes, this, that, whatever. That was going back to your sheet, that was one of the biggest things, was credibility over the phone. So the site helped big time.
Absolutely. And I could see how that would be helpful. Like you said, testimonials, people believe people. So having people on there talking about how you helped them out and in different ways and probably in different states and things of that facet is absolutely extremely important. And I can imagine that built your credibility up quite a bit. I know if I was looking at something of that sort, I wouldn't be second guessing you at that point, right? So
it's attention to detail too. So like if I'm talking to a vet, I get their MOS. So when a vet goes and reads and then they're like, oh, that dude was a, B-52 flight crew chief. Like, that is like locking them in. Oh, this is where vets go to get life insurance. Or you know what I mean? So like, just little tiny things like that I can't see the person. I'm not in home, right? Like, I can't pick up the pencil for the lady when she drops it. Just like little tiny stuff that goes so much further than you would think. This coverage, if you don't make this coverage seem like the most important thing they're ever going to purchase, then I don't know why you're doing the job, essentially. Like, we justify paying hundreds of dollars a month for auto coverage. It doesn't pay us when we die, and we barely ever use it. Same thing with homeowners. Doesn't pay us when we die, but we're good. We'll pay $350 a month or whatever, like combined or whatever, and we don't even blink at it, right? But when you die, that does absolutely nothing for you. So just make it seem very important.
I love that. And I think that is really important, guys. I always say, like, you shouldn't be selling a product to somebody that you don't understand why they need it. And if you don't understand why they need it, it's simply probably because you haven't asked enough questions or really opened it up enough to understand what the situation is going to look like. And I always like to remember, like, for me, Mike, I'm always like, Marisa, like, you do this every day and you might ask 10 people the same questions every day, but they're only going to do this probably once in their life. So let's make the most of it and let's help the family as much as we can so that they understand what is it going to look like. If not, there's no value really built. So there's no solution, so to say. Like, they don't see it as a problem unless you start asking questions. So that's huge, Mike. I love that. And what is an absolute must for telesales that you would say, some agents fail without this, whether it's a program or discipline or any type of anything, like if you're doing telesales, you absolutely have to do this or you're probably going to lose?
I mean, we talked about a lot of it. I think setup, when I got off of like my little laptop that I had connected to my TV, like, because there's a lot of things that I have a lead sheet up, I have a script up, I have toolkits up, I might have an application up. The second we're fumbling around on the phone, the call is over. So being able to have everything just here, like my setup is
Right. So you have multiple monitors
yeah.
and you're
Also,
making sure you're plugged in, you're logged in before you're jumping in.
so you just took the yeah. So how many times have you and I did it. So how many times have we done it? And how many times have you gotten a call and I can't log into my Aetna? It's like, bro, you probably should have figured that out before you left the house.
Yes.
Just saying, right? So like all of that stuff, obviously,
Make
yeah,
sure you're ready.
yeah, just I honestly, it's the setup, it's the schedule and the setup. The setup was huge for me. I am old school where I like to write and doodle and whatever, but I completely lose everything. So like Samsung S8, I get to write and I use Note Shelf, so everything stays in here, like my lead sheets. So like that's an intake sheet for me,
Okay.
right? So, but they're all here, right here. I can just flip through, bing, 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 bing. And then I send this to them afterwards. So if it's a no sale, I send them the intake sheet that we just went through. It's got website, national producer number, cell phone number, all that stuff. I have really, really nice penmanship. I'll just toot my own horn there. And that's an art school thing. Imagine, so it happened today. I got a text. I'm ready to proceed with my life insurance. I went back into my email and I found that sheet you sent me. I had talked to a bunch of other idiots. Their quotes were way higher. They were, pushy. You were not at all. You were very informative. You were real. So, and that's like compound effect, right? Like you take a ton of appointments and you just you're having a crappy day or whatever, and you get a no-show or whatever, and then you get that random, pick the phone up, you get to put a green on the calendar.
Right. Absolutely. And that's huge. I love that you do that because also when you're intaking someone's information, it's also important that, you're showing them like, I am a professional. I recorded everything just as we discussed. I wrote down some additional notes. I'm showing you the form. I'm showing you exactly what it is. We talked about what it does. And then you sending that out, like you said, are you getting 10 phone calls a day? Probably not, right? But are you getting 1, 2, 3 a month? Probably.
So see the bottom, right? So that's a vet sheet, timeless vet. But you see the American flag? That's your
Yep.
attention to detail. That's the little things right there where like that guy's like, all right, this dude's kind of cool.
Right, right. He's like, I kind of mess with him a little bit, right?
Yeah, yeah, you're
And then they're
related.
more likely to get back to you. So I love that. I love
Yeah,
that you send that. I think that that's huge on a telesale. And it's
yeah, because
also easier for you to be able to go back as an agent, even if someone just called you back, right? You're like, okay, we talked in March, right? You're able to boom, go back up to March. Here
yeah,
you are, Betty, right?
yeah.
So
So it's funny you say that. So like if I go back and if I go to 2023, you have all the months.
right. So it's organized.
You can right. So I'm awful. That's another thing. So maybe to go back to your question, the musts or whatever, right? Single dad, like I'm a train wreck when it comes to that stuff. I'm a clean person, but it's messy, right? Like this is just whatever. But for organization, again, like this is our business. And if you're producing at a high level, there are tons of sheets, there are tons of just everything. Forms you got to sign, this, that, whatever. And it's just like the other nice thing is like if I have to do something with a client or sign something. Every carrier is good with just a signature on this tablet, like when I write it. So doesn't need to be printed and taken, take a picture of it or whatever. Also, something on I didn't know you could do signatures with these guys. You can. And it was an IULE the other day. I sent the email. He zoomed in and he signed it right with his finger. I forgot. I don't even remember where to go into the iPhone to do it, but he knew and he went and he signed it. I was like, wow, that might be a game changer, because guess what? When when you're on the phone, this is a telesale thing for sure. When you are on the phone with an 82-year-old from Texas, and Mutual of Omaha is the best carrier for her, it's going to be a struggle. It's going to be a struggle. You got to make a game out of it. It's not like America with the 3-digit or the security question through Aetna. Mutual is a beast to try to get an older person to do the e-signatures right. Literally 2.5 hours is our record right now. 2.5 hours. Miss Patricia, I'll call her up every couple weeks and let her know she's still got the record. But if you make a game out of it, you're like, all right, try to beat the record. It was 5 minutes today. They'll try to work with you and get through it. But they need to.
I like that. It keeps it fun, right? Like, it keeps it fun for the client, keeps them more attentive with you, and it's more playful but in a serious manner. I like that.
Got to put your heads together with these people to do this. It's an important conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just to kind of close the call out, is there anything else you feel like you want to add, or that you feel like is important to know on the telesale realm or the transition? Anything else really that you want to add? Because when you were up there speaking in Connecticut, I remember thinking, like, you were one of, like, you're probably like the, I don't know, like 5th or 6th person to speak. And I was like, okay, Mike, like, let's go. Mike's helping 40 families a month on telesales. Like, and you got up there and you crushed it. So,
I
and
appreciate that.
absolutely. And really what it seemed like it kept coming back to was really attitude and activity, not even to be like corny, right? It's like, you got to do what you got to do. Like, I love your background, by the way. And I love your shirt, by the way, also.
Yeah.
But you got to do what you got to do. Yeah. And like, if you're that professionally blunt, right, as Mike's shirt says, like, you're going to win here. Like, that's what we need. We need people to be professionally blunt, right? Whether you're
That's
in
what
home
they
or doing
need.
telesales.
That's
That's what
what
they need.
yes.
Exactly. I like that, Mike. That's what
Yes,
they need.
it is. And it is what they need, because if you're in the final expense market, reverse engineer the process to shop for life insurance. It sucks.
Right.
It is not fun. And that is why your carriers, your AARP, your Globe, your Lincoln, your Bankers, your Colonials, the process is easy. They don't care what the product is. They're not talking to some pushy, call them 17 times a day person. And that's why they're in these policies. The best phone call is when someone already has a policy. If I could switch to every single person I talk to having a policy, I would.
How do you swing that, Mike?
I don't know. How would I?
Yeah.
I mean, I could tell my dialer to do it, but sift through, but I wouldn't do that. I'm just saying they believe in life insurance, right? So getting someone to believe in life insurance is that's the, one part that most struggle with. Damn, I forgot what I was going to say. I got my first All-Star games tonight. I'm coaching like 13 to 15-year-old All-Stars.
Hey, well, that'll be fun, but I can imagine your brain's jammed right now, like with a lot of it.
Yeah, I'm all over the place.
Hey, but what you just said is important, right? You said they need us to be professionally blunt, right? But then you said that people that already have life insurance, they already believe in life insurance. So you don't need to sell them on why they need it. They know they need it, right? Like, at that point, it's, can I beat the price, right? And I think that that's
know your product. That's what it is right there. So knowing your, not your product, we know our product. If you're in final expense, the questions on our applications differ by 12 months or 24 months. They're all the same questions, but with you being able to dissect, I just did it today. A guy had a $50,000 AARP increasing term policy. Sir, do you realize that's going to drop you at 80? Essentially, they're going to send you an offer that's so insulting, you're just going to rip it up and throw it in the garbage. And now you have to shop for coverage at 80. That sound like fun to you? No, no, it doesn't. Okay, well, and what he was paying, we maxed out a move 40K whole life, and it's the same price and never going away, right? So just little tiny stuff. And again, for me, it's all tone and delivery. We can say the same thing, but how we say it and how we deliver it and what tone we deliver it in is the difference. And over the phone, that it's really everything. This kid Justin Vom Egan, I don't know if you guys have ever seen him on YouTube. He's a SLS guy. He's in recovery. We have a pretty similar upbringing. He won Cody Askin's like telesales contest for best call. Even though I listened to his call, I have way better calls. But anyways, he is all about tone and delivery. And I think that's what it is. Like if you can speak with conviction, if you can speak like, listen, I don't care if it's $3,000 when your daughter is distraught and a $3,000 check hits her hands, it's a little bit of peace of mind in a time of, crisis and mourning. That's going to drill somebody a little bit more to be like, whoa, instead of like, maybe you should get $3,000.
Right.
No, no.
No value.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And I love how you said tone and delivery, and I couldn't agree more, just across the board, especially on telesales, because that's what you're handling is tone and delivery, right?
Yeah.
But guys, whether you're in home, you're doing telesales, you're on Zoom, it really is always all about tone and delivery. It's not what you say, it's how you say it, right? We always say that, and
Everything.
it's the absolute truth, right? Like
Everything.
even when you ever talk to your friend or an agent, and you say something and maybe you didn't say it how you actually meant it, like the way it came out wasn't how you anticipated it, guys. And that happens.
I'm single.
Right. Oh my, you're killing me. But you know what I mean? It's like, guys, if the delivery is there and the tonality is there, the person's going to listen to you. Like that's just like a human nature default. So I think that that's huge. And I think that's honestly just a big takeaway, like tone and delivery. I know sometimes I'll wake up and I'm in a weird mood or whatever it might be, Mike. And I get on the phones and I'm like, hey Mike, this is Marisa, and I sound like I'm miserable. Like I'm getting hung up on. I'm like, why am I getting hung up on? You're getting hung up on because you're saying the same thing, but your tonality is trash. Nobody wants to hear you, right? So that's really important, guys. Like we could all take like one thing away. Like I took many, but like tone and delivery, like Mike just said. And Mike, just to kind of wrap the call up, what are your goals wrapping up 2023 now that we are essentially midway through the year?
So I just sent you like little tiny stuff that I will fire off a couple days after I talk to people.
Awesome.
Because I can't share my screen, but going to art school and knowing graphic design kind of helps. But like you personalize little stuff like that. So like that thing that I just sent you, that's going to sit in their phone, right? So like if they're actually in the process of shopping, just like the intake sheet that I send, and if they're getting quotes that are higher or it's not the right product or whatever, they're going to refer right back to it. They're also going to be like, wow, that person actually took the time to do that. Maybe he does care or she cares. So my goal daily is 2. I have it set up right now schedule wise where like if I wanted to sit here all day long, I could probably write 4 or 5 policies a day. I don't because you can't put a price on time. And that's the other thing about telesales that we just avoided on this whole call is that I can get up and go do whatever the hell I want right now, as long as my schedule is on point. I already hit my goal today. Now it's time to go, coach all-stars. I can't do that in the field. I was missing my son's stuff in the field. So that's the biggest thing for me. My lead cost right now is like 900 a week, and I'm writing 8 to 12. That's absurd. That's absurd. Right? So no gas, no travel, no Taco Bell landing on my lap, no crazy drivers, and exclusive, really good leads that self-book, and a great dialer that stuffs the schedule. And then it's on me, right? That schedule is full. It's on me at that point. And I'll tell you what, like waking up to a schedule that's purple from top to bottom, that's what's up. Now, you may have a day where it all turns to red, but if you keep having days that are all purple, there's going to be a lot of green in there, a lot of green.
Absolutely. You're just digging it out, right? Like that's what you're doing. You're going through your days and you're finding the people that need it, and it is what it is, right?
Yeah,
But like you said, top to bottom.
The goal would be 2 a day for me right now, with the thought in the back of my mind and the confidence in the back of my mind that if I turn this on and just cranked it just day in and day out, we could probably put up anywhere from 40 to 100. So after I talk to Heather, I'll feel more confident in that as well. So.
Amen. Heather's crushing it. So you guys should absolutely connect. And honestly, Mike, this call has been extremely helpful for me. I love how you talked about the time too. And I think a lot of people can resonate there. You know, you mentioned in the field, sure, I could provide, I could make the income, but the time wasn't there for me and for my family, right? And that was the biggest thing. Right. So for that, it's like, to be able to trade it, like that's the trade that you wanted probably coming in, was to be able to get that time back, right?
What's the price you would pay for it? Like when you're driving in the field, how much money would you pay to like get to that little league game or whatever? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's such a, I don't even know the word for it. I'm like spiritually rich, I guess, right? So like, that sometimes puts a much better feeling than, your deposit slip in the morning.
Absolutely. Knowing that you were able to do what you wanted to do on your terms, and you still worked hard, got through your day, but you following your schedule. And like you said, you're at the little league games, you're coaching, you're doing the things you want to do that you simply couldn't do if you were in the field. So
like I said at conference, right? I was homeless. Legit lived behind a 7-Eleven, lost condo, 3 cars, custody of both boys. Right. So I probably see that time more valuable than anybody. I mean, everybody's got their stuff, but like for me personally, like there's nothing that's gonna, like right now, my 19-year-old and I are gonna go coach little bro and my son, at an all-star game. There's like nothing that, whatever policy, like not like whatever.
Nothing could trade that feeling, right? Of you being there with your son, like teaching your son, like that's amazing. Like that brings a smile to my face.
There was a time where I didn't think it was available or ever going to happen again. So I live with a ton of gratitude. I don't need a huge bank account to justify my FFL career or anyone else's thoughts about me. As long as they're good, dad's good, and like life is good, and we're helping families. I don't know what else to say. It's just now it's time to figure out what else we can start tackling to make it even bigger, better.
Awesome. Well, I absolutely love this call. It was amazing. Thank you for sharing, Mike, because I know I don't know you too well, but I can say, hey, you've come a heck of a long way, and kudos to you. And I'm just happy to hear where you're at and what you're doing. And it's amazing.